This is 20 pounds of unapologetic bovine real estate. I'm gambling $160 of grocery store budget on 20 pounds of unbutchered chuck roll to block a $600 DoorDash leak. I've never broken down a cow before, but I want to find out exactly how many meals can be made from this giant hunk of beef. And I'm running a highly caffeinated military campaign today to buy my sanity back by turning it into as many restaurant quality meals as possible. I'm officially over the dump and freeze meal prep trend. You know the ones where they throw raw ingredients into a bag and hope for the best. Instead, we are butchering, portioning, seasoning, and then doing what most other creators won't do, showing you the actual cooked meals instead of a frozen bag of sadness. Because we all know what's coming.
Mom, what's for dinner?
Let's get to work. Enter the chuck roll. This thing is the size of a toddler and weighs way more than my anxieties and commands absolute respect. And I may have started off the day very peppy, but we'll see how long that lasts.
Sophia. What?
She doesn't care. She's completely uninterested in the meat toddler. First up, we're giving our meat boulder a quick sponge bath in the sink, like some sort of weird Victorian nurse. If the food safety enthusiasts in the comments are currently having a heart attack, just know this. I have calculated the risks, and I am more afraid of a bland Tuesday than I am of a little sink splash. Moving on. Welcome to my hyperfixation of the month. Meat math. This is the rumored cost for what your family should be able to get if you buy an entire chuck roll yourself and butcher it at home. Buying this pre-cut at the grocery store is $260. Buying the whole block is $152. I'm essentially paying myself $110 an hour to play with knives in my kitchen. First up, we have the chuck eye. This is Ribeye's hot next door neighbor who drives a nicer car but doesn't brag about it on Instagram. Steakhouse prices for a date night where you get 2 steaks is going to run you close to $169. But in my kitchen, by butchering these chuck rolls all on my own, we're talking $17 for 2. For 2 steaks. I am basically robbing the restaurant industry and I feel really good about it. Besides, I would much rather spend that extra 140 some odd dollars on things I actually care about, like really, really good coffee and shoes. Now I'm saving the bourbon beef and broccoli for the very, very end. And honestly, it's a bit of a gamble because if I get the heat wrong on this bourbon reduction, it turns into a giant, sticky, sugary disaster that will fuse my nonstick pans right to the stove. Ask me how I know. If I pull a me and mess it up, let's just say we'll be ordering pizza for the entire neighborhood just to hide the evidence.
Oh yeah, looks pretty great.
Those look just like steaks you buy at the store.
That is what I was going for.
Behold the Denver steaks, the overachievers of the bovine world. Most people think that chuck is good for slow cooking until it's unrecognizable, but these 5 are destined for high heat on a flat top. I'm pulling 5 restaurant-grade steaks out of this meat toddler, effectively turning a budget purchase into high-end luxury. Okay, so look at this. This is the muscle lifter. It's also known as the butcher's bonus. It's a small piece of meat, but it's super tender and it makes just enough for about 1 person. You sear this off and pull the mom move, where you're eating it like a feral goblin over the sink before anybody else can see you, and it's amazingly delicious. Now I'm looking at the heavy artillery. This is our center roast. These are your slow cooker kings. You throw these in the crock pot on low for about 8 hours and it basically disintegrates into just pure culinary serotonin. And because my caffeine just peaked and I need a creative outlet, I made color-coded graphics for this part. You're welcome. So everything else on the counter is basically going to just become stew meat, but we're not turning it into stew. We're making it into shredded enchiladas, tacos, and slow cooker beef ragu. Sidebar, when I told my husband we were having beef ragu for dinner, he looked at me like I was threatening him with a jar of pasta sauce from 1998.
So what do you think of the beef ragu?
It was very delicious. Pleasantly surprised.
Pleasantly surprised that it wasn't just a can of pasta sauce.
Well, when you said ragu, I thought, okay, it's just pasta sauce.
I had to explain to him that we are adults now and we can enjoy things like Italian braised beef. Oh, it's so good. Doing this bulk buy means that I've purchased weeks, literal weeks of not staring into my refrigerator at 5:15 p.m. and aggressively praying that a rotisserie chicken magically manifests itself out of thin air. Outside, my kids are experiencing a magical Narnia-level winter wonderland. We basically don't get snow here in Myrtle Beach, so this was a really exciting time for them. I, however, am inside because 1, I do not like the cold, and 2, I am elbows deep in about 20 pounds of raw chuck roll, and beef just does not care about our snow day. Beef has its own schedule that includes it going bad if you let it sit for too long, which, by the way, that smell, not good. The things that you learn in your early 20s. We have officially hit the assembly line phase. Look at this mountain of protein. This is a meat fortress. This is my I refuse to cook until the heat of death is upon the universe, middle of spring to summer insurance policy. Once cooked and shredded, can be turned into like 3 different meals. Once that was taken care of, my husband decided to break dance behind me. Now, because we did such a large bulk buy of meat all at once, I had to have a butchering day and then our cooking days. Yes, I am wearing a wool coat in my kitchen. It is freezing, and the garage is basically an Arctic tundra.
I'm going in the garage so I can grab meats and die.
If I don't come back in 10 minutes, please send a coffee and a search party. There are 2 ways to do freezer meals. Way number 1, you just dump the ingredients in a raw bag, freeze it, and cook it later, and that's fine. Way number 2 is to pre-cook everything, smoke it if you have a smoker, freeze it, and that way you literally just have to hit the defrost button on a Tuesday. We're going to be doing a combination today, mostly so I can actually show you guys the meals that were made from these amazing freezer dishes. By batch seasoning 4 pans at almost the exact same time, I'm cheating the system a little bit here. And we are aggressively hitting this with olive oil and a heavy splash of vinegar. I don't care about exact measurements right now. I just need the acid from the vinegar to go ahead and tenderize the beef so that way it completely falls apart when I cook it. And I am doing this while simultaneously dodging a tiny human who is completely hypnotized by a screen. Mom logistics never sleep. Now we're going to be building our flavor bases. I'm dumping in jars of diced green chilies and red peppers. This is going to give us that smoky barbacoa style heat. We're creating a highly versatile protein engine that can feed your family for days, and all I had to do was open a few jars. So we're going to finish this off with an aggressive assault of cilantro, Italian herbs, a mountain of minced garlic, and enough taco seasoning to make a purist angry. The meat's going to go into the Ziploc, it's going to get labeled, thrown in the freezer, and then it's going to turn into an absolutely amazing set of dinners. These graphics are the reason I am standing here covered in meat juice, because here is what this can turn into. Once you're ready to cook this, all you have to do is take your meat out, defrost it in the sink or overnight, and then put it into your slow cooker. I typically like to do this the night before. I'll let it cook all throughout the night, and then it's super tender when I wake up in the morning, and I can go ahead and transform this seasoned meat into whatever I really want to use it for the rest of the week. And in this circumstance, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do shredded beef tacos because we are fabulous that way. And please ignore my personality disorder slow cooker who thinks that it is necessary to launch the clips all the way into my sink and then not work right when I'm filming a video.
I did that. How do you get this back on? Tell him, get over here, fatty.
Did you just say, get over here, fatty?
Yes.
Oh.
I wasn't summoning you. I was talking about Aslan, you weirdo.
I thought you were talking about me.
When have I ever referred to you like that? I think that would be called an abusive marriage if I just randomly started saying things to you like, get over here, fat.
Okay, yes, dear.
That is funny.
Meat has officially entered the slow cooker spa for the next 8 hours. But while we wait for this beef to reach its culinary nirvana, I'm not going to be sitting down. We have a side dish infrastructure to build. But first, we initiate the most crucial step of this entire operation, the mid-afternoon emergency caffeine drip. So without this coffee, I'm basically just a tired woman staring at a giant thing of dry rice. With this coffee, I'm a tactical genius, ready to build a restaurant-style Mexican feast. At least that's what I'm telling myself. Side dishes are usually where my willpower goes to die. It is so easy to open a can of mushy beans and just call it a day, but we are better than that. We are toasting brown rice in olive oil to build a nutty, bulletproof flavor base. And while that toasts, we're going to prepare the black beans. Now, I love my family, but I do not have the emotional bandwidth right now to stand here and meticulously mince a red onion by hand like I'm some sort of culinary student. Enter my favorite weapon of mass efficiency, the slam chopper. I want this onion destroyed in 3 seconds or less, and boom, done. So the onions and the beans hit the pan, and now we are aggressively dumping in cumin, oregano, and salt. Do not ask me for exact teaspoon measurements, guys. I am flying blind. I am measuring with my heart and a slight caffeine tremor. Just trust your instincts. Weeknight dinners need a punch in the face, not a polite tap. Next, we're going to put in a block of tomato paste and a really heavy pour of broth. We're going to whisk it into submission, cover it, and walk away. The hard part is officially over. 8 hours later, the beef has completely surrendered. It is shredding apart just by looking at it. So we build tacos. We hit the tortillas with our smoky, shredded beef deliciousness, the obligatory handful of cheese, and plate it up next to our highly engineered rice and beans. I'm clapping my hands in excitement over here and then reminding myself, you're doing a voiceover. Stop making unnecessary noise. Sit still. Look at this plate. This is an absolute victory. This is basically a $60 DoorDash order that I just conjured up out of thin air for pennies, and nobody had to put on real pants to go pick it up. So we're going back to the assembly line, and we're gonna pivot to the Italian flavor profile. This one bag of Italian beef is basically a chameleon. It's going to magically turn into beef ragu and baked ziti and Italian sliders over the next 3 weeks. We're not just making dinners here, we are building a strategic food reserve. And to do that, we're gonna hit it with a massive amount of garlic, a solid dosing of Italian seasoning, a very generous portion of salt and white pepper, 1 can of diced tomatoes, and 2 handfuls of onions. And there you go, you did it, another dinner done. But let me flash forward and show you exactly how this plays out on a random, chaotic Tuesday night. Basically, I'm gonna go ahead and take this Italian beef, throw it into the slow cooker, and let it shred. Then it's gonna get divided up into different portions so I can use it over the next week or two to make several amazing dishes. All future me has to do is grab some penne pasta. Go ahead and take some of that Italian beef, and I'm going to put it into a pot with some pasta sauce, so that way all the flavors can mingle. I hoarded the leftovers and ate it for lunch over and over until we ran out of it, and then I made a second batch because it was amazing. It was basically a culinary masterpiece. And because this Italian beef was so good, I'm also going to show you how I turned it into baked ziti. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to take your meat, put it in a pot with some pasta sauce, let it reheat together, and make those same penne noodles. It's basically the same dish with a different address. Then you're going to drain your noodles, put them off to the side, hopefully without spilling them like I did. Dump the entire operation into a glass baking dish. Now, by law, any baked pasta requires a protective shield of cheese, but I had forgotten that I had it in the fridge in the garage, so I just used what I had in the house. It's gonna go into the oven just long enough for the cheese to get crispy and golden and brown, and look at this. This is the triumph of human engineering. It smells like a rustic Italian villa in my kitchen right now. Or what I dream a rustic Italian villa actually smells like. And, of course, after all of this Michelin star level strategic prep, I am serving it on a neon orange plastic toddler plate that I have washed about 6,000 times. Humbling. It's absolutely humbling. Welcome to the illusionist portion of the evening. I'm about to take one giant batch of beef tips and gaslight my entire family into thinking we're eating 3 completely different meals this month. We're gonna hit the pan with a barrage of garlic and onion powder, my ultimate secret weapon, this homemade beef au jus powder and homemade bouillon powder. If you're interested in how I make these, I will be doing a video on this soon. If you guys want me to, let me know in the comments. So I'm gonna dump this in like a savory sort of fairy dust. Basically, it's MSG's rich, sophisticated cousin, and it makes everything taste like it was cooked in a French restaurant instead of a chaotic suburban kitchen. We're gonna bury the meat under a mountain of diced onions, hit it with Worcestershire sauce, and mix. Now look at this. This right here is the DNA for beef stroganoff, French dip sandwiches, and classic beef tips. So the meat gets bagged, it gets labeled, and tossed into the freezer abyss. But let's go ahead and flash forward and look at this amazing stroganoff payoff. It's Thursday. I'm exhausted, I'm not wearing makeup, and my hair is tied back. Instead of crying into a takeout menu, I'm going to boil some egg noodles and then dump in our pre-marinated beef. We did the same thing with the meat where we put it into the crock pot the night before, let it cook, and because the meat is finished at this point and the noodles are boiling, I'm gonna go ahead and saute some onions and butter in a pan, and then I'll add in my chicken broth. Once that's done, I'm gonna go ahead and add a truly reckless, unsupervised amount of sour cream, mix it together and let it bubble. It takes 12 minutes to make this. My kids devoured it, and I get to sit down and pretend that I slaved all day over a hot stove, and I didn't. So we're working smarter and not harder. By turning these beef chunks into a pot roast meal, it means that at more than one point in the future, I get to look vaguely impressive with almost no active participation. We're gonna add in a really good amount of minced garlic. I do not measure minced garlic with precision because I've suffered enough in life. Then we're gonna throw in our onion powder and garlic powder, season it with your heart. Now, this is technically a pot roast dish, so I'm not interested in seasoning it like I'm afraid of it. Pot roast needs depth, it needs confidence. The same way a younger brother needs confidence when asking for more animal crackers. It needs to taste like it came inside, took off its coat, and it already pays its taxes. Then I'm adding in about 1/4 cup beef bouillon powder and 1/4 cup of homemade beef au jus powder. If you have the store-bought packets, use those, they work. This needs enough flavor in there to survive the freezer and then the crock pot and then whatever kind of mood I'm in when I pull it out to cook it. And then I'm gonna add in several large handfuls of onions, which is a very precise measurement system I have invented called Until It Looks Emotionally Correct. And I use a lot because onions are out here doing unpaid overtime. They cook down, they disappear into the sauce, and they make everything sweeter and deeper and richer, and they're asking for absolutely nothing in return except not being left out. So that's an easy win. And once this cooks low and slow, all of that melts together into a really rich pot roast flavor. It has the personality of a dependable winter boot. It's not flashy, not begging for your attention, and when the day is ugly, suddenly this is exactly who you want showing up at your door.
I don't want to cook dinner.
Before anybody says anything, yes, I made a truly disproportionate amount of au jus for these French dips. Not a reasonable amount, not just enough for everyone amount, an amount that suggests that I completely misunderstood the assignment and thought that I was catering for a minor banquet. But I have a philosophy about French dips, and that philosophy is that if you are going to call something a dip, it should be quite capable of being dipped. I don't want to be down there in the pot scraping the last little bits of juice off like I'm rationing gravy during wartime. So I made a large, definitely aggressive bowl of au jus because I want every sandwich to be properly soaked.
This is a very large thing of gravy, but you better eat all that gravy.
We like a lot of gravy with our sandwiches.
Yeah, we drink the whole thing after we're done.
No, but really, my kids teased me so hard. This is where a truly disproportionate amount of au jus just starts looking less like a mistake and more like a visionary leadership situation, because it was so good that we ended up doing these sandwiches again on a second night. And honestly, that right there is the dream. I love a meal that accidentally becomes a sequel. It was one of those things where I kept thinking about it afterwards, which is always how you know a dinner got a little too comfortable in your mind. That was suspiciously good for something so simple, sort of a way. And since there was enough left to do it again, I did not even feel slightly noble about stretching this meal into a second. And honestly, the second night of French dips has a certain type of energy to them. Everything already knows what it's doing. The beef is still good, the flavors have settled in even more, and the whole thing really comes together like a meal that's already been through dress rehearsal. So yes, we had au jus sandwiches on 2 different nights, and I regret nothing. If dinner is going to be this easy and this good and this aggressively dip worthy, I am not going to start pretending that we need more variety just for appearances. We're keeping the assembly line red hot and moving straight into the enchilada regime. I'm bagging up another massive pile of beef. I'm going to go ahead and season it with our homemade fajita seasoning, drowning it in red enchilada sauce, and then tossing it in the freezer. But let me show you exactly what happens when we actually cook this. Take that shredded enchilada beef and mix it in with the diced green chilies and shredded cheese, which is a very strong move because it immediately goes from practical to suspiciously good. Then I roll up all that filling in tortillas. Now, normally I would hand roll these perfectly, but my caffeine is starting to wear off and we are speed running through this. Zero dignity, maximum flavor. Line them up in a baking dish and pour more enchilada sauce over the top because dry enchiladas are a personal insult to mankind. Once everything's done, I can go ahead and put a really generous amount of rice on the plate first because I'm not really here for tiny decorative scoops. And then 2 enchiladas go right on top of that. It's beefy, it's cheesy, saucy, comforting, and it looks like a dinner that required planning and patience and probably a better apron than the one that I own. When in reality, it started out as beef chunks in a bag and a refusal to make my life any harder than it has to be. We've officially reached the point in the day where my kitchen looks like a crime scene and I'm running off of pure coffee adrenaline. So it's time to sanitize our battle station and deploy our final weapons. Doing another bag of that fajita seasoned beef, but with much different intentions, so we're going to go ahead and leave our enchilada sauce out of the freezer meal completely. If you haven't seen our seasoning video where we made all of these blends ourselves, I'll go ahead and link it in the description of this video for you. But essentially, you go ahead and you take these beef chunks, season them with fajita seasoning. It cooks in the pressure cooker, it gets really nice and tender, and turn it into what I can only describe as Chipotle-ish tacos, which is not a real culinary term, but it is spiritually accurate. It's smoky, spicy, slightly unwell, gone immediately. It's the whole shebang. For the sauce, you're gonna add in a whole can of chipotle pepper and then add a good amount of lemon juice, some dehydrated cilantro, and then about a half a cup to a cup of water, just enough to loosen everything up and be able to let it cook down into an actual sauce instead of a collection of deeply aggressive chipotle-sized beliefs. And yes, I could have technically thrown the chipotle peppers into the freezer bag from the beginning, and yes, that would have been simpler, but it would have also been a deeply unserious decision for my household. Because everyone in this house loves spice except for my 5-year-old and my 7-year-old, and I am not about to trigger a dinner uprising because the 2 smallest people here with the least emotional regulation and strongest union energy object. Now that this is cooked, we're going to go ahead and load up our flour tortillas with our shredded chipotle beef, fold them in half, and pan fry them in olive oil until they're crispy and golden brown.
I remember Hello Kitty slippers.
I'm frying gourmet restaurant quality tacos and discussing Hello Kitty slippers. The duality of motherhood is breathtaking. Now, I was supposed to show you a gorgeous, slow-motion, cinematic pan of a giant platter of about 40 finished tacos. They ate them all before I could even get the camera set up.
What are you doing?
There's 1 taco left.
Oh.
I didn't film the whole thing of tacos.
We ate them all.
All 40 tacos gone. And honestly, I am not offended at all. It just means that my hyperfixation today was a massive success. Up next, we're going to bag the Mississippi pot roast. You take your beef and you throw it in with some au jus seasoning and ranch, a few pepperoncinis, and then throw it in your freezer bag. So this one can go right into the crock pot or again the pressure cooker. It's just depending on how far you planned ahead, like a reasonable citizen, because sometimes I feel like I've got it together and I pull it out the night before, it thaws, goes in the crock pot in the morning, and other times it's like, shoot, I need like a last minute save my butt sort of plan here, and it goes in the pressure cooker. And it was so good. This is not the time that you want to be full of restraint. This is a full situation where you want those soft mashed potatoes underneath the shredded roast that's on top and all of the juice that's running down. It's everything. It's so good. It's warm and savory and rich and a little tangy, and absolutely the kind of meal that makes people go quiet for a minute because they're too busy dealing with how good it tastes. It's not flashy, not trying to be interesting, just deeply comforting comfort food, which is the most dangerous type of food you can have because you start eating it and suddenly you've had like 3 bowls and you're like, wait a minute, I need a new dress size starting tomorrow. Okay, we have entered the final boss stage of our military operation today. And while the coffee is gone and my feet are numb, I am so close to the finish line that I am not going to quit. We're going to speed run through the last of this meat. We're going to do something a little off kilter and take our peri peri seasoned beef and we're going to go ahead and turn it into a bourbon style shredded beef and broccoli dish. Somehow, the seasoned peri peri beef mixed with our homemade hoisin sauce is just outrageous. I'm going to add in about half a cup of soy sauce, a solid heap of minced garlic, and another half a cup of brown sugar. And then almost immediately, the sauce is going to start acting like it had been waiting for me to show a moment of weakness. And it's going to begin rising up in the pan with that very specific kind of false confidence that says I'm either going to thicken beautifully or become a sticky disaster in under 30 seconds. And we're going to find out together, which is absolutely not the kind of energy that you want from sugar and soy sauce right before dinner. It got louder, it got foamier, it started climbing the sides of the pan like it was trying to leave the scene before all the questions were answered, and I was standing there mildly alert, trying to watch it the way that you would watch a toddler go suspiciously quiet in the other room. Because once the sauce starts moving like that, you no longer have a recipe, you have an incident report. And for one brief moment, it really did look like this was going to bubble over and turn into one of those deeply annoying kitchen setbacks where everything smells promising, but the stove now looks like a crime scene was committed against it. But no, thankfully, it did not happen on this day. I pulled it back, I got it under control, and I let it cook down, and it stopped behaving like an emergency and started behaving like an actual sauce. And while that's happening in the background, my family is having yet another debate about manifesting things. Now, I don't know much about manifesting jobs, but what I do know is I just manifested an entire month of dinners out of a single cow, so I think I win automatically on principle alone. Now look at that. The bourbon didn't fuse to the stove, and I officially feel like a domestic genius. And if you want the recipe, it's both in the description box and on the website. Next up was the freezer meal with beef chunks seasoned with our homemade blue ribbon chili seasoning. And just to be clear, I do not mean like one of those dusty little packets that people throw into taco meat to make it into chili that they bring to like a potluck. I mean like blue ribbon win a prize sort of chili. It's rich and savory and deep, and you can actually use it to turn it into beef chili. All you have to do is cook it in your Instapot. You add in your broth and your beans and your whatever other classic chili ingredients you want to go ahead and use. However, sometimes you want to do that classic lazy girl survival nacho hack, and this is the beef to do it with. So I took some tortilla chips, I added some shredded cheese, piled the beef on, and then threw some red onions on the top of it, and just threw the whole thing in the microwave like the very practical woman that I am. And honestly, this is just one of the best shortcuts ever because it feels slightly disrespectful, but very award-winning. Now for the adobo beef tips. I'm hitting this with that mountain of garlic that I'm so obsessed with, adobo seasoning, and onions. But here's the genius part of this specific meal. I'm gonna outsource the labor. I handed the meat to my husband and banished him to the garage to cook it on the Blackstone. If you have an outdoor grill or griddle, go ahead and use it. It keeps the kitchen clean and it makes men feel like they're contributing to the survival of our tribe. It's a win-win. And by the way, the Blackstone, great investment, guys. Great investment. And this is not a pitch or anything, but I got this for Seth last Father's Day and it has been one of the greatest things we've gotten. So you could just eat these beef tips with a vegetable side dish like responsible adults, and it's gonna be delicious and amazing. But instead, I'm feeling a little extra and we're gonna make adobo beef flatbread pizza. We're gonna take our toasted flatbread, which is made from sourdough discard, and we're going to layer it with cheese. I took some of those really beautiful charred beef tips and I put them in the crock pot with some beef broth and just let them cook down into really shredded, falling apart, delicious pieces. And that's what we're gonna go ahead and put onto the top of this. Then we're gonna add our red onions in while we actively listen to my daughter and my husband argue about where my husband's golf clubs are actually going to live. She wants to move upstairs. Our rec room is upstairs.
Never mind. That she's gonna move upstairs by the end of April.
That's cute.
You put it in the garage.
No. Potentially get moldy. Oh my god.
And with that, our heist is officially complete. One 20-pound chuck roll went in and 20 pounds of dinner came out, which honestly feels less like meal prep and more like I committed a very specific, very domestic felony. I spent about $150 to save myself from spending $600 on disappointing takeout, weak decisions, and the kind of weeknight panic that makes everybody worse. Now the freezer is packed, and that is a full freezer. The children of Narnia are fed, and future me is about to glide through the month like she has staff. Present me, unfortunately, has to wash the cow off, so if you need me, I will be at the sink scrubbing my hands like Lady Macbeth with a Costco membership. If you want to see how I hide the evidence of this mess, go ahead and hit that button. And then head on over to that playlist so you can see if I survive the next big cooking day.